Welcome to the first episode of Price Action Sundays. This is actually a series that I've been wanting to start for such a long time, and this is finally the first episode. I started this series for traders to resonate with me and to show traders out there that you are not the only one going through what you are going through. So if you have any emotional battles or psychological battles throughout the week with trades, I want to show you that I'll also go through what you are going through, and just to help you improve and give you tips and pieces of advice to help you as a trader. In this series, on every episode, I am basically going to go through the past week's price action and then also do some trade forecasts for the upcoming week. With the past week, I'm going to show you what trades I took, trades I stayed out of, the emotions I went through, placing trades, and also to give you some tips on psychology and just to help you as a trader. A few years ago when I got started in trading, I also looked up to two friends who were trading on YouTube, and they were sharing weekly videos of what they saw in the markets and just the emotion they were going through. And that actually inspired me to start this series, because I remember when I was going through some tough times with trading and I just wanted to quit, and the strategies I was following was just not working, and the psychological battle and all that kinds of stuff. And when I watched their video every week, it just made me feel better and just motivated me to just stick to trading, because I saw they were successful, and also not feel like I'm the only one doing this. As you know, trading is lonely. I really hope you enjoy the series I'm starting. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so that you do not miss any future Price Action Sunday episodes. So let's just get right into the charts. Okay, so as you can see on my screen, this is Euro US dollar. I'll just go to the chart right now. I just want to show you the entries that I look for, the entry types, and what I look for in the markets. And I also want to just say I only trade the 1 hour time frame. I do not look at any other time frames. I do not do top-down analysis, and I just stick to the 1 hour time frame because it really works for me. And especially that I work full-time and trade part-time, it gives me the time to part-time look at the trades on top of each hour to see if I see an entry and if there's an impulse or momentum in the market. And a lot of times when you look at a lot of time frames, there's too much confusion. For some people it probably works, but for me it doesn't. There's just too much stuff to look for, because on a 4 hour time frame it might look like the pair is bullish, but if you go to a 15-minute, it's bearish. So on the 1 hour, I know if there's momentum, there's momentum. If there's a setup, it fits my plan, and I just stick to it. There's nothing else to look for. It just keeps the strategy simple and not to overcomplicate trading. So let me quickly show you what I look for. The first type of setup I look for is a continuation setup. So if there's a nice impulse to the upside, and then there's no shift in momentum, and then price breaks that high, and there's no shift in momentum, but it breaks it with, with an impulsive candle, I would then look for a setup. But there has to be clear momentum in the market, and it has to come from a certain price action like descending, all that kinds of stuff. So I'm not going to go too in depth, but I'm just showing you this is basically what I look for. So I'd basically take a setup there, same to the downside. Another setup I look for if there's an impulse and there's no shift in momentum and it forms a sort of a flag formation, I would then look at taking a setup over there. So as you can see, if it has like this flag formation, I'll take it to the upside or to the downside. It doesn't matter in which direction this formation takes place. And another thing I'd look for is a reversal setup. So the reversal setup is basically like this. So let's say price starts ascending, just like breaking the highs, retracing, breaking the lows, breaking the highs, retracing, or vice versa. If it happens at the bottom, it must be a descending, but this is an ascending for me. And then it forms like a flag sort of formation and then breaks the most recent low with momentum. I basically love this setup because it makes me get into the markets much earlier than, basically before the momentum starts taking place. So those are basically the setups I look for. So just to give you an idea of that, you'll see more when I go through the charts. So I don't want to make this video too long, so let's get right into it. Okay, so let's go to the beginning of the week. As you can see on my screen, this is the Monday. So the Monday opened basically in a range from the Thursday. As you can see, that's the recent high and that's the recent low. So we've just been ranging in this area the entire time. So that was on the Monday morning. We started in this range. So then we broke out of this range around 1 o'clock that afternoon. As you can see, above the highs is liquidity. As soon as we broke the high, we retraced there. Then we had this nice impulse to the upside. And that happened later on the Monday, let's say to Monday evening side, if you're in South African time. So after that impulse to the upside, it looked like price wanted to push up, but then we started ascending. So as you can see, we broke the high, retraced, broke the high, retraced. Then we had this very nice impulse to the downside. As I said, there's a reversal setup, but I wouldn't place it there because I just feel like I wanted to see a bit more momentum because it had this push up. So I just wanted to see that price confirms it wants to go to the downside. So then you can see it had this nice impulse to the downside, gave us this retrace candle. So you'll see there was an impulse here. This middle green candle is a retrace. If you look at the lows, that low was basically not broken and it retraced, and then it had this nice push to the downside. That gave me confirmation to take this trade and place my order. So you'll see, took the trade around there and you'll see just how it played out. So I basically put my sell limit on and I got tagged into the position, and it was one of those trades that tagged me and it just automatically started dropping. This is on the Tuesday. You can just see how price played out. Then it broke the low. I then locked in profits around this area and just broke the low again there. And as you can see, the trade played out nicely and took me out around there because this was my last high and that was my low. So my stop loss was just above that candle's high, and as you can see, it tagged me out over there. So yeah, that was a very good trade for me. It was a 5.2% trade. Very happy with the result. And basically I was in this trade for about, let's call it 2 days. Let's say almost 2 days I was in that trade. And then further with price action, after we had that move, you can just see we broke the high, retraced, broke the low, retraced, broke the high, retraced. And when that usually happens in the market, I just expect it to range, you know. And that's exactly what it done. It just kept on ranging. We didn't see any movement further down. As you can see, we also broke this low, retraced. And I'm actually making this video on a Friday. Market's not closed yet, but the video will be posted on Sunday. So let's go to the next pair. Next, we can look at AU, Australian dollar, US dollar. So let's go to the beginning of the week. You'll see this is the Monday over here. So also when we started the week, we were basically in this descending range. We then had this nice impulse to the upside. I thought momentum would continue to the upside, but we had this wick, which is a warning sign, and we had this huge red candle. So it gave me that flag formation sort of, but not a perfect setup. So I stayed out of the market. And that's an important thing. You'll see some setups take place because I could see momentum was building, but that is when you have to stay out of the market and stay patient. We then broke this high. We then immediately retraced, and then we broke this high, immediately retraced. Then had this descending nature with a push up, and then after that push up, price basically gave us this V shape, and that V shape took place, not really a complete V shape. A V shape is basically when that happens, and then the price starts ascending and impulses in the second leg. It doesn't always happen, but as you can see, it had this wick, and then we started moving to the downside. We then broke that low, retraced, broke that low, retraced, broke that low, retraced. It just showed a larger descending. After that descending, you can see we started moving into an ascending nature. So we started breaking that high, retracing, breaking that high, retracing. And I just want to quickly go through this trade. So what started happening was after this large descending, I was basically looking for an impulse to the upside, and that would motivate me to take the setup. Because you can see here on the charts, we had this large descending, kept on breaking the lows and retracing. Then it had this impulse to the upside. This was my recent high. We had this impulse. I didn't want to place my order here because I just felt like that red candle was a bit of a warning sign. But after we got this green candle, it gave me confirmation after this large descending that I thought price would carry on to the upside. Unfortunately, as you can see, I placed my order on this line, so let me just make it a bit clearer. So I placed the order there because I thought after this green candle, price is now reversing. After this descending is going to impulse to the upside. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, and I took a 1% loss on this trade, as I always only risk 1% per trade. And yeah, so that's a 1% loss, but at least on the EU, took a nice 5.2% gain. So for the week, I only took these two trades, and it's actually obvious it was a descending that turned into an ascending. So it's actually an average trade in my eyes. I should not have actually taken this trade, and I feel like I should not have taken it. But it looked like an average setup for me in the moment. I was busy at work, and I just saw this setup, and that's something you have to really watch out for when you're busy and you look at the charts and you're like, okay, it looks like there's a setup happening, and you just jump into the trade. You must rather just be patient and, just stick to your forecast. If you say beforehand you're not going to take the trade, just don't take the trade. So I saw that candle, got excited, thought price is now going to start pushing to the upside. As you can see, it was about 3 o'clock on a Thursday, and I jumped into the market, and yes, it basically just took me out. And thereafter just ascended for the rest of the week. So let's go to EJ. As you can see on EJ, not much happened with this pair. We had this very nice ascending like EU beginning of the week on the Monday, and then we had this impulse to the downside. But it just didn't give us that continuation setup like it did on EU after the impulse, because it had this large wick, so there's a warning sign. As you can see, it broke there with a wick as well, so I didn't want to get involved in this continuation setup, but then basically broke this low and continued to the downside. We then had this nice flag formation, just broke the low, because this was my recent low, that's my recent high, and we broke this low and then immediately retraced and started ranging. So nothing exciting happening in EJ, and that's why I stayed out of the market. As you can also see, we then impulsed to the downside. We had this large wick. We impulsed to the downside, had this huge wick at the bottom. That was my high, this was my low. This is basically a liquidity area, and we got taken out here, so this liquidity area got broken and immediately reversed. So that just shows me with a large wick like this, we just want to basically range. There's nothing really going on. Before I look for any setups, I just need an impulse to the upside or to the downside. So as I said, if I had to forecast what's to happen on EJ, I'd just say I'd wait for an impulse to make a further decision. On AU, I think what's going to happen, let me just quickly jump back there. Because it's this large descending to an ascending, what I'd look for on this pair is definitely a major push to the downside in the coming week. And I think momentum will then go down. But remember, this is the markets. You can't exactly say what's happening, or we can push up. So I'm just expecting a move to the downside. And if there's a move to the downside, I'll start looking for setups and trades to take. And this exactly the same with EU. As you can see, we had this descending, as I mentioned earlier, this range. And I just think we need a nice impulse to the upside before I start looking for setups, or a nice impulse to the downside before I start looking for setups. So that's the first episode of Price Action Sundays. I don't want to make the video too long. I just want to show you basically what I went through, trades I took, which ones I stayed out of. And I'm a price action trader, so I wait for momentum in the markets before I execute on any of them. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe so you do not miss the next episode of Price Action Sundays. Enjoy the week and all the best. Let's crush the last 2 months of 2023 on the markets.